What's up, guys? How are y'all doing? Today we're going to be doing basically my first video game review of sorts, and this will be for Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, the first in what is to be probably a trio of entries for this little sub-series into Call of Duty, being developed by Infinity Ward and published by Activision, but you all know that. So anyway, as you all know, this game suffered a lot of flack when it first came out. Like, lots of flack for, well, not when it came out, before it ever even released. The trailers were all lauded for just being a futuristic game. People wanted an old school return to Call of Duty. They didn't want any future stuff, they didn't want any really crappy plots that have been plaguing the series since Black Ops 2. They just wanted either a thorough World War II game or something like Modern Warfare with a good story. But when the trailers first came out for this game, people weren't really enthused with it. They thought it was just going to be some type of really crappy sci-fi fantasy cliche. I honestly thought this was going to be the end of Infinity Ward because, you know, Infinity Ward had been logged for a long time. And the last game was Ghost before they released Infinite Warfare. But like me and a lot of people out there who actually like this game, I was pleasantly surprised by how much of the old Call of Duty is retained in this game. From the guys who developed the original Call of Duty, they put in so many elements of the original Call of Duty that make it so good. Even though it is a futuristic game using half the things that Treyarch and Sledgehammer put into the game, they make it feel so much like a Call of Duty game, like an actual military story, instead of crappy plots with futuristic subsettings that make no sense at all. Alright, like, when you play as Reyes in this game, you really feel like you have the weight of the entire, really, the Earth. Like, you have the entire weight of the Earth literally weighing upon you, and if you fail, you're screwed. And the writing was done by basically the guy who plays Reyes, also the guy who plays BJ Blazkowicz in Wolfenstein, Brian Bloom. This is a through and through ultra military story. Not like it's deep like Starship Troopers, but it doesn't have the really stupid political sub-themes that almost ruin the whole thing. It's something that you can look through and say, this is a lot like the plots for the original Call of Duties and for lots of World War II shooters out there. Something deep. It's a deep, intricate story with interesting characters, interesting setting. It's just something that could really drag a person in at a first glance if they knew really nothing about the things that Call of Duty was going through when Call of Duty went through all the bull crap that it went through with the change from the modern pacing to basically a mix between future and modern combat setting with Black Ops 2, and then moving completely to futuristic setting with a lot of futuristic combat styles. But this one you can actually fight with, in the campaign, you can fight without the stupid jet. You can fight without the jump packs, you can fight without the rigs. There are more than a couple of sections in this game where you can fight just like you did in World War II. Now, in a sec, I'm going to play bits from Racevix on the story, just so he can basically help back up my point, because he covered this in depth. As a guy who is very critical of video games, he sets my thoughts about Infinite Warfare really perfectly clear, and it should stop basically any Call of Duty hater in its tracks. Well, at least the futuristic setting, because I still think that Infinity Ward can do so much more with Infinite Warfare. And there's so much that it needs to be done to it to help make it better. Because like I said, I really like this game. But Race is just going to tell you how.
Yet as far as this goes for your actions as a player, you pick missions, and that's as far as the correlation goes. I understand that soldiers wouldn't put their captain on the front lines, and that the game is already taking a leap with Reyes entering battle at all. But that's not exactly what's happening here. Your fellow soldiers tell you what to do, and you do it, just like when you were a rookie in Modern Warfare. But that's the least of the story's problems. The greatest is the plot and its structure. The game's opening is to set up a full-scale war that's sparked between the Mars-based SDF and the Earth-based USA. While the prologue bores, the invasion is actually solid, establishing the overwhelming power of the SDF without simply blowing up your home in a lame set piece. However, when these missions are completed, the war is set, and your admiral is investigating some specific details into the finale of that first act. But when the game is nearing its conclusion in Act 3, your admiral has got the data necessary, and this makes everything you do in between completely useless. There's no point in saving.
Yeah, like he said, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of problems, and he states this perfectly, but he does state a lot of things that can really support the game and what it was trying to do.
Plants destroying enemy ships or gathering resources. Your problems are solved by someone else off screen. This leaves a likable cast nothing to do except die at the end, and all of the development they built up over the course of the game could have been accomplished with the premise of them running along on Earth. There are some nice touches, such as the game's theme of sacrifice, watching the news after each major level, checking audio logs, hearing letters during the credits, and there's even a touching moment where you need to apply pressure to a soldier's wounds, assuring him that things are going to be okay, as you slowly feel his heartbeat through the controller's vibration fade away. Death quotes are even back, this time being related to the SDF. It's interesting to have your mistakes be emphasized by the enemy's ideology and military supremacy. Yet without these quotes, the SDF would have no characterization. During that first piece of quiet time I mentioned in your office, there's a whiteboard full of SDF's most wanted members, from Small Fry to the main antagonist.
Yeah, that's also one of the really big things that I really like about Infinite Warfare is the fact that you actually, in between missions, you do get a quiet little office where you actually get to survey your battle plans. As insignificant as some of the things seem, I really think that just having a quiet space as a captain in your own ship and give you a piece of silence throughout the awful carnage of war, I think that really helps the development of your character, Nick Reyes, which I still think it's amazing development. Yes, the story has its problems, but it's still got a lot of cool stuff.
This had me oozing excitement. The possibility of gathering intel, hunting down and exterminating the SDF's most essential members one by one, had flashbacks to the flexibility of Crackdown or the subtle character build-up in Thief or Assassin's Creed. This was going to be great, until discovering that you just stumble upon these people during missions with no build-up or payoff. You do see a picture and learn what they look like, after you've already killed them. Why is this a thing? Because if it didn't exist, a few of the side missions would have next to nothing in reward for the player. Fun fact, when writing this part of the video, I legitimately forgot to bring up the villain. That's the level of charisma on display here. It's by no means just that the actor is miscast, because no actor in existence could make this villain seem threatening when all he does is send you messages and dies. Again, for as monumentally absurd as the Modern Warfare games got, its villains actively fought against our heroes, killing allies and foiling our plans, making it all mean at least something when you press RB to throw a knife into their eye socket. Even the game's conclusion suffers from this unrealized potential. Multiple members of your crew sacrifice themselves so you can continue, but so many of the deaths are predictable and contrived. The lack of an epilogue is really felt here, with nothing but Nora honoring her comrades while a loudspeaker confirms, yes, your mission was a success. It neither commits fully to its theme and leaves the player as lost as their character in the end, nor does it wrap up the adventure in a satisfying way. Yet, for all of the issues with Infinite Warfare, its campaign doesn't elicit the immense frustration I felt in previous outings, because there's an actual experience to be had here with effort put into it by a slew of people, from artists, actors, designers, and more. I get the sense when playing that Infinity Ward were passionate about their creation, and that's what was really missing from Ghosts.
Yeah.
But what about multiplayer?
And that was really the big thing that I think a lot of people really hated about Ghost, was that it was just generally a game that was uncaring. it seemed, from the development team. It just wasn't something that people really thought had something of value. But Infinity Ward, like Raceway said, they put a lot of time and effort into making this game. Alright, and like I said, this game is good. It has a good story. It has a cast that is very likable indeed. It's really telling how much Infinity Ward made a complete 360 away from Ghost. Because they actually listened to what the people wanted to hear, in a sense. They may not have changed the entire tone of Call of Duty from futuristic back to World War II, but when you compare Battlefield 1 to Infinite Warfare, this feels more like a game that is actually set piece for an awesome military story. Alright? As much as I wanted Battlefield 1 to succeed, as a guy who was not really a Battlefield fan, it failed because it did not have the authenticity that typical war games have had, like the original Call of Duties. And this may be attributed because Battlefield is mostly just a game where you're fighting somewhere else in street corners, and it's just street corner combat with no real, it's like not even real effort. Well, you can have real effort put into it, but it's not like you feel imminent danger because of it in a Battlefield game. It's just street combat without really any real sense of like, holy crap, this is intense, which is what World War I was. It was stagnant trench warfare mostly. Yes, there was fighting in the streets, but it was still very slow, very painful to get through. Every inch gain meant lots of blood loss. Alright, and the only time you ever felt that in Battlefield 1 was in the game's opening, which kind of shows you a good little piece about how it felt fighting on the front lines of World War I. But that's it. There's no real sense of that stagnant trench warfare that you can get from that game. And that's something you can feel in this game, whether it be in space combat, whether it be in aerial combat, whether it be on ground combat. It actually has a lot to give you. And I'm going to let him finish off with a little something about the end of it. Hold on, let me find it. Gotta find a timepiece for it.
Now, to make a big adjustment in a lobby requires planning and exact knowledge of which menu to navigate and use. When the customization is too vast and vapid for your own pre-game lobby, it's time to dial back your additions.
Alright, here you go.
As I said in the beginning, Infinite Warfare is one of the strangest games I've played in a while. It's a multiplayer game where its developers seemingly didn't want it to be, based on the effort in single player compared to multiplayer. I can't speak for the developers' intentions, as there's little to no information on this game's development. It can only be theorized. Thankfully, their intentions have resulted in a much improved game from the perspective of campaign, and I would recommend giving it a try in the event of finding a cheap copy. That is, if you've already played Titanfall and Doom. It's a brilliant example of when a studio should be investing their time into something new, but can't due to the profit margins of their current work being too large for a publisher to turn down. From the setting and technology to the structure and pacing, there's so much potential to really take Infinity Ward to a level that put them back among the greats. But what undoes all of it is the name to which they must uphold.
Yeah. He makes a good point here about how Infinite Warfare was just lauded just because it had the Call of Duty tagline. That's honestly what I think caused a lot of people to really turn away from the game. And I've read articles about how they said that they didn't expect the game to sell as much just because the Black Ops sub-series had more of a sway in sales than anything else, really. Alright, and And that's also another thing I'd like to talk about is like the infighting basically over who wants to be the greatest. Basically, like who wants to be the greatest game company who can develop a good Call of Duty game, which is really what Call of Duty has been since the release, I think, of Black Ops, because that's when people really started to get an innermost division in the Call of Duty community, because either people were like, "Oh, Treyarch really got Call of Duty down. They're the best developers of the series." But then there's a lot of people like me who really respect what the original Call of Duties were, and also Modern Warfare. And we're like, no, I think Infinity Ward has more. I would give more credit for Call of Duty, since they A, helped put it on the map, and B, helped basically Black Ops come to be with Modern Warfare. Because without Modern Warfare, I don't think there would have been a Black Ops. But people were either just wanted a Treyarch game, or they just wanted something else completely different. And Sledgehammer, I have serious doubts about how good Sledgehammer can make Call of Duty World War II. I have serious doubts. I don't care how smooth the game plays. If you're not going to make it historically accurate in all aspects of the game, then you lose me. Alright, this is the exact reason why I've never finished Battlefield 1. I've only played a few missions of the game, and then I lost enthusiasm because it just felt boring. It didn't feel stagnant. It didn't feel authentic. Alright, at least what they tried to do in this game is give you an authentic military experience like Starship Troopers. It's just basically a sci-fi experience mixed in with the military story. Only this one does it, like I said, without all the political crap they tried to put into it. And it's something that can really help Infinity Ward become, like Racefix said, one of the great video game companies, basically. Because everybody wanted Infinity Ward when they made the original Call of Duty. Alright, from the time up until Modern Warfare 3, everyone wanted Infinity Ward. Just like how everybody wanted Bungie when Bungie ended up leaving Microsoft. Everybody wanted Call of Duty. But then it lost so much sway because of all the bullcrap that surrounded the last few Modern Warfare games, and then Black Ops 2 came out, which is a severely overrated game. And then the introduction of Sledgehammer and Advanced Warfare, which almost completely, in some ways, ruined the good style that Call of Duty had. But this game is basically an attempt to rectify every mistake that the Call of Duty series has made since probably Black Ops 2. Alright, because as ridiculous as some aspects of Modern Warfare 2 got, I still think that was a very solid game. But I think Infinity Ward tried to learn from the mistakes of GOATs, and learn from the mistakes of basically every game they ever made for Call of Duty since its inception. And we're like, I think we can, they're like, this may not be the best thing, but this is a start for something new. This is a start for a new age in Call of Duty, where we might be going more towards their roots. Like Metallica in 2008, when they released Death Magnetic, they're going back to what made them famous. Back toward what made them a set piece in music, like Metallica. This game is an attempt to get Infinity Ward back up with the greats that it was always lauded as whenever the original Call of Duties came out. And it's really sad that a lot of people still will just bash it just because they hated how futuristic the games have gotten, right? Because I didn't want to buy this game when it came out, but I bought it about a month ago, and I do not regret it. I do not regret ever buying this game. And I really hope that people will actually just take another look at Infinite Warfare and actually try to see why people like me enjoy it and try to actually help Infinity Ward or Sledgehammer or any of these other Call of Duty developers and trying to point out their problems and help them make their games good. And if they won't listen, then fuck them. But if we can make more games like Infinite Warfare, then genuinely we can help make Call of Duty great again. Yeah, it's like America great again. Let's make Call of Duty great again. I'm telling you, Call of Duty will be. I'm telling you, if Call of Duty just didn't go through the ridiculous stages it went through from Modern Warfare 3 to Black Ops 2, this would be. The entire series would still be as well regarded as it was when it first released back in the 90s. Well, not the 90s. Whenever it was released. So, yeah, that's my whole view on it. You may not agree with it, but at least just taking the value why people like me enjoyed Infinite Warfare's story, why I thought the gameplay was solid, and why basically I hope the entire series of Call of Duty takes this path. I really want this. Like, I just want something more deep, more intricate, more feeling like an actual warfare environment. Alright, I don't want to have a failure like, and this is basically my whole hope for Call of Duty World War II. I don't want it to fail. Alright? I don't want it to fail, but with the whole other crap surrounding it, it looks like it might. But if every Call of Duty would just follow the example that Infinite Warfare left, we would not be in a shitty position as we are now with basically everything in first-person shooters right now. Because the degeneracy of first-person shooters like Halo really started at Call of Duty. Because everybody started saying, oh hey, Call of Duty's got a bunch of cooler shit in it, and then Halo tried to mimic some of that, even though Halo was copied by Call of Duty half the time. You can make a genuine case that some of the stuff in Infinite Warfare was copied from Halo. But the story is original as much as the story, and while the story is original, it does have a few aspects from the Halo extended universe that it takes from there. But yeah, anyway, that's all I've got to say about this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This certainly was a video that was kind of hard for me to think about wanting to make. I hope you guys agree with me, and if you don't, that's fine. Oh shit. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. But like I said, just take into solace why people like me like Infinite Warfare so much. Alright, you guys have a good day. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night, or day, or whatever the heck you are. Goodbye.